Alright, let's get started with Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is Workforce Safety and Wellness. National EMS Education Standard competencies for this chapter are to apply fundamental knowledge of the EMS systems, safety, well-being, and advanced EMT, and some medical, legal, and ethical issues to the provision of emergency. Workforce Safety and Wellness is having a better understanding of standard safety precautions, better understanding of PPT, how to deal with stress management, how to deal with death and dying, and prevention of response-related injury. Also, how to lift and move patients properly, prevention of work-related injuries, disease transmission, and wellness principles. So, to take care of others, we must take care of ourselves. And advanced EMT training does include recognition of hazards as far as personal neglect, health and safety hazards, and stress. We must have self-control. This is necessary to be able to respond effectively to suffering of others, and it does come with training and experience and dedication to this particular profession. Infectious diseases is a medical condition caused by organisms within the body. They can be spread from person to person or from one species to another. Communicable diseases are those that are spread each one of these ways. We will take a better look into this in the later chapters as far as some of the infectious diseases that are out there and we may be exposed to. So the best way to prevent these from affecting us personally is to make sure you properly clean not only your hands with hand washing, but also by cleaning your equipment. So infectious diseases may be reduced by making sure your immunizations are up to date, protective techniques as far as wearing your PPE, proper PPE for the patient that you're encountering, and most definitely hand washing after each call with soap itself. We have to be very cautious with the quick sanitizing soap. Sometimes it doesn't get into all the bacteria that it needs to get out. Proper cleaning and disinfecting of the ambulance and equipment will help prevent transfer of illnesses between patients. And make sure that you clean everything properly and with the right type of chemicals. So, when all of us are pretty good about our stretchers and the back of the ambulance, what about those handrails at the top of the ambulance? What about the handles on the cabinets? What about the front of your ambulance with your dashboards, and even down to the pens that you use and your clipboards that we may use? I know a lot of us are starting to use mobile devices, so we may have to think about those also. Inform other providers who may come into contact with a patient of a potential risk. This is helping keep your personal community safe. As far as your fellow workers and stuff. And that we don't have to always give out names. Sometimes we may just give our addresses so that we know what's going on. All contagious diseases are not infectious. Not all infectious diseases are contagious. A pathogen is a microorganism capable of causing diseases in a host. And then a host is that organism or person invaded by the pathogen. So this makes an infectious disease a disease caused by an infection. And then those can become contagious or communicable diseases, and it can be transmitted from one person to another. Contagious diseases are transmitted from one person to another by direct contact. So we have skin-to-skin contact, indirect contact. So then we have airborne transmission, and we breathe it in. Foodborne transmission, and then vector transmission. So, let's think about our routes of transmission. A poor airborne transmission, like shown in this picture, is us just sneezing out into the air. It is acceptable to sneeze into a Kleenex, but the best way is to sneeze into your sleeve of your shirt, and that gives a good confident barrier there, and you're not really transmitting it into the air. You're putting it back on yourself, which you're probably already sick at this point, but you're not spreading it to other people. So we are all trained yearly. So how to handle bloodborne pathogens. This is one of your, possibly one of your mandatory training that you have to do yearly. It is required by OSHA to be trained yearly. The Occupational Health and Safety and Health Administration, and it includes those issues handling blood and bodily precautions and contamination precautions. You should also have policies and procedures on how to reduce and prevent all these diseases also. So the CDC developed standard precautions to prevent workers from coming into direct contact with germs. We often do presume that every person is potentially infected. A lot, we used to go through a period of time where it was very popular to tell if you were infected. However, I feel like sometimes we've gone back into that. We don't tell anybody anything anymore. So you have to be really careful about patients and be keyed in to what their signs and symptoms are. And you should have a designated officer if you are exposed. This goes back to policies and procedures within your local service and how to follow those policies and procedures if you do come in contact with something. Some of the standard infection control procedures are, hand hygiene, wearing gloves, wearing gowns, mask and eye protection with your face shield, HEPA respirators, solid patient care equipment, soil patient care equipment, how to handle those, how do they get cleaned by procedure. So also don't forget about your sharp spots, respiratory hygiene, coffee etiquette, and notify your designated officer if you are exposed. So proper hand hygiene is the most effective way to control disease transmission. You need to wash your hands before and after patient contact. A lot of times we don't get to do it before. If you do have that opportunity, try to take that opportunity. However, afterwards you should go to a sink, wherever you transport that patient to, and wash your hands with soap and water. You can use a hand washing substitute if there is no running water. That's why we carry the bacterial soap on our units now. Gloves, minimum standard of EMS personnel. Change your gloves between patients. Sometimes I know this is hard to do when you're sitting in that NCI setting, but if you do know you're en route to one of those, make sure you put some extra gloves into your pockets. Um, Protect hands and wrists from injuries and during rescue. Eye protection. Um, Sometimes we forget about this. We get caught up in the excitement of the call. But goggles are best if you have those available to you. A lot of people use sunglasses. However, they are not adequate enough because a lot of times you don't have that side shield and that complete cover up, from top and on bottom of your eyes. So face shield should also help protect if you do have that bad trauma patient that's possibly exposing you to a lot of bodily fluids. Gowns do provide protection from extensive blood splatter when used with other PPE may be worn in situations such as field delivery or major trauma. And it may not be practical in many situations, but you want to have those readily available and know where they're at on your unit. Use surgical mask if fluid spatter is possible. Please place the surgical mask on the patient with a communicable disease. Especially if it's airborne disease. A HEPA mask is a high efficiency particulate air respirator. Place it on yourself, especially if you're suspecting a patient with tuberculosis. However, place it on yourself. Do not place it on the patient. You may want to use a simple face mask or possibly a non-revealer to kind of help place another barrier between you and the patient. Just some ideas there. Mouth-to-mouth resuscitation may transmit diseases. Those devices are contaminated after exposure to the patient, so obviously you want to get rid of those and throw those away in proper designated places. Proper disposal of sharps. It does help to avoid HIV and hepatitis. Do not recap sharps, break them, or bend the needles. Dispose of those sharp items into approved closed puncture-proof containers. We do use a lot of needless systems and AV catheters, safety systems. Make sure you have approved places to get rid of these, and don't keep filling those sharp boxes up until they're completely. You can't hardly fill them up properly. So you should have plenty of those, and make sure these containers are labeled and with biohazard insignia. So your employee does have responsibilities. They can't guarantee you a 100% risk-free environment. You are going to be exposed, and it is part of the job, especially in EMS and the pre-hospital field that we work in. Your employer should follow OSHA and other regulations such as from the CDC and the National Fire Protection Association too. Please make sure you know your department's infection control plan. I know a lot of departments do go over these yearly, and make sure that you read those yearly too by having you sign off that you read those policies. Establishing an infection control routine. Infection control should be part of your daily routine. I know people that they start on infection control as soon as they come in to check off, their unit and their equipment. They may start wiping things down immediately. So clean the ambulance after each run and on a daily basis, at least on a daily basis. Some of the components of your infection control plan may be the combination of an exposure, education and training, which I said that a lot of times places do that on a yearly basis. Hepatitis B vaccinating program, and a lot of places do offer this free to you as an employee. Proper PPE, maybe a change in PPE, cleaning, dissipating practices, tuberculosis skin tested and fit testing, and post-exposure management, compliance monitoring, and record keeping. So, but cleaning is an essential part of prevention and control of these diseases, to make sure you ensure that the surface of the organisms is removed off the unit. So you should use a bleach and water solution, and that's a 1 to 100 dilution in an hospital-approved disinfectant. Remove contaminated linens and put it in an appropriate bag for handling. Um, Immunity comes from having been immunized or vaccinated. So it is a major factor in determining which hosts become ill from which germs. Immunity can be gained by having a vaccination to that particular communicable disease. Um, Sometimes with immunity is only partial, so it protects against new infections, but germs that remain in the body from the first illness may still be able to cause the same disease again when the body is stressed. So how do we prevent these? Maintain your personal health. Annual health examination should be required for all EMS personnel, however that is going to be departmental or agency based. Um, make sure that you get your tetanus, pertussis boosters every 2 years, measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine, influenza, the flu vaccine, maybe yearly, hepatitis B vaccine, as it is required by OSHA, chickenpox vaccine. So you should be getting a TB test done before you begin work as an advanced EMT, and that testing should be repeated every year. So please just make sure you always follow your standard precautions to avoid exposure. If you are exposed to a patient's blood or bodily fluids, turn over patient care to another EMS provider. So when it is safe to do so, clean the exposed area with soap and water. Okay. If your eyes are exposed, please rinse for at least 20 minutes as soon as you possibly can. Activate your infection control plan. You will need to be screened to determine if there was a significant exposure, and you will have to complete a post-exposure report. So time is very important with these. Some diseases will act quickly, and others will lay dormant. So early activation of a plan is the best way to reduce the risk. So, illness and injury prevention. Advanced EMTs can be involved in prevention. Some of the top 10 causes of death, as far as EMS providers, were heart disease, cancer, chronic and lower respiratory diseases, unintentional injuries, stroke due to the high stress levels, Alzheimer's disease, flu, diabetes, pneumonia, kidney disease, and renal disease. Also suicide, which I think is becoming more prevalent in the past couple of years, as we are starting to recognize that. So start thinking about your continue to protect yourself once you are on scene. Make sure that this scene is well marked and well lit. This is where we work with other public safety agencies. Fire department may bring some lights in, or you may have another agency that may be able to light up the thing for you, placing warning devices, parking at a safe, convenient distance, and make sure the vehicle stability. Um, you're not parking on a hill, and potentially that vehicle can roll down, or you're not on scene inside of a motor vehicle crash of a car, and that car is not stable as far as the extrication team. So you may not want to put yourself in that unsafe scene at that time. So always wear your reflective vest. Or make sure that your clothing may be reflective on the roadways. So that's another OSHA standard that we have to follow. So hazardous materials stains, look at the stain, try to read any labels, flappers, or identification numbers from a distance. You should have those binoculars on your AEMT and should be available in your unit. So when they are present, remain uphill and upwind from the scene. Especially training to quit hazardous material changes will be called to the scene to handle disposal of those materials and removal of patients. They'll bring them out to you in the cold zone. Vehicle collisions, unstable and potentially lethal situations. Sometimes we get kind of like a deja vu around these situations because we're around them so much. So please consider traffic hazards. Think about those people driving by and they're not paying attention to what they're doing, or those people that may be driving a high rate of speed coming into your scene itself, and they may cause another accident. So always be aware of your 360. So park so you can easily leave the scene. A lot of times, other public safety agencies have gotten there before you, and they might have a plan already in place for you to park. And sometimes you want to work with everyone, but you may not think that that's the most easiest place for you to leave the scene from. So you may want to talk to them and see if you can come up with an idea to both, so that both parties are happy about it. Like I said, be conscious of that flow of traffic. Be alert for any hazards. You may have an exposure to liquids on the roadway, and someone might be walking around, a lay person, smoking a cigarette or something like that. So always use your full protective gear if you have that readily available to you. Don't forget about power lines down. Hey, don't forget about violence. You may be on the scene of an assault or a gunshot wound. You may have some bystanders that may be pretty upset about what's going on, and they may want to um, get back at that person or something like that. So think about those airbags too that have it deployed and you still have an active battery. So electricity down power lines are beyond the scope of an advanced AEMT. So a lot of times they're beyond the scope of a lot of public safety agencies personnel. So mark off a danger zone and do not approach any down wires. So, lightning is a threat through direct hit or ground current. So keep that in mind. You're out there in that thunderstorm. We have to get out in all kinds of weather. A repeat strike in the same area could occur. Try to avoid being injured by ground current. Stay away from the drainage ditches, most moist areas, small depressions, or wet ropes. So if you believe a strike is imminent, move to the lowest possible area so to avoid the projections. So a lot of times when I think there's a lightning potential, I try to get my patients really quick and back into the back of the unit, so I know I'm grounded at least on the with the tires of the ambulance. Or fires are a high hazard, so you're exposed to a lot of toxins through the smoke. It's an O2 deficient area, high ambient temperatures, toxic gases. Don't forget about those byproducts where those chemicals are burning together. A building collapse, it could be imminent at any point. the equipment and possible exposure, correction, explosion. So make sure you're being trained in the use of aerial protection, have it available. If you are having to, use those SCBAs, so make sure you know how to use those properly, and those face masks are properly sealed to your face. Carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, or colorless, odorless gases. Don't forget about your CO patients and their signs and symptoms. And you may have that high SpO2 reading, but actually that CO is actually masking the oxygen deficiency that's really going on. Cyanide is a part of the combustion of many materials that burn and prevent cells from using oxygen. Be extremely cautious when you're near a burning flame or one that is recently being extinguished. Follow the instructions of your incident commander and safety officer that are on scene. A lot of times we're there to rehab these patients, or rehab fire department members and those fighting fire actively. So most of the time we're out in the cold zone. So violence is another thing hazard. It can be created by civil disturbances. Domestic disputes can become very hostile very quickly, especially when both parties are in the same area and you have, people coming up that pick a side really quick. So you really don't know what's going on and who's with who sometimes. Crime scenes to be very careful at. People get really gun-ho about entering the crime scene a lot of times. I highly recommend if you can put one person in and have one person come out, and a lot of times that cuts down the number of employees that are involved in litigation matters, later on. Always know who is in command, who's in command of that scene. Try to follow their lead, and that way everybody's kind of happy. So they know who's went into the scene, who's has it and went into the scene. If you don't feel comfortable at a scene, leave. Law enforcement may say they have a handle on a scene and they think it's under control, and something happens and it becomes really unsafe really quickly. Sometimes you have to pull yourself out. So, that's one thing I always like to do. I always like to know a way in and have a 2 or 3 ways out of a situation. Always be aware of your surroundings. The perpetrator could be still on the scene, and they may reappear, and they may be there to threaten you. Somebody might hop on the back of your helmet, and you're not exactly sure who they are. And they could have been the ones that was there trying to hurt your patient initially. That's why, in those situations, I don't recommend a whole lot of people being able to ride with patients to a facility or receiving facility. It just needs to be that one patient. So, behavioral emergencies that do not have a clear physical cause. Most behavioral emergencies do not pose a threat. Make sure you evaluate that patient in terms of behavioral and psychiatric emergency that may lead to a violent patient reaction. So, you may have a calm patient 1 second, next second they are totally violent, and you don't know what the triggers are, and sometimes those triggers do get initiated, and it does turn that patient into a violent patient at that time, and you may have to call for an additional help. Make sure your PPE, you're very familiar with it. There are several types of PPE out there, and you just need to know what's available to you. Cold weather gear. Sometimes it has 3-layer. Tornado gear also has 3 layers in it. It has an inner layer that pulls moisture away from the skin. A thermal layer. to a, a middle layer that bulkier material also serves as the insulation, and then that outer layer that may resist wind, rain, and sleet and snow. Um, so turnout gear is used for structural firefighting environments. It's very thick, but it can be very warm sometimes. And it does add weight when you're trying to wear it. Can be hard to clean a lot of times, so we have to use proper procedures to clean it. Um, Helmets, if they're available to you, that's great. It should be one to help protect falling objects. Um, the best ones have a secure chin straps to them. So boots, um, you know, if your service provides them to you, they should be water resistant, fit well, be flexible, cover, protect your ankles, protect you from the cold, fit properly, puncture resistant, protective toes. Steel-toed boots are preferred. However, I know they are heavy at times. I try to wear them personally on a day-to-day basis. Just I make sure I protect my toes. We do deal with some heavy equipment. Sometimes can be dropped. Um, Make sure you're wearing eye protection, ear protection if you're getting into a lot of loud sounds. Maybe in a industrial area. Sometimes even riding in our ambulance and with the siren going a lot of times. Um, it can be detrimental to our ears also. Um, Skin protection, body armor if it's available to you, that's great. Um, a lot of times we don't understand what kind of situations we go into. We may have a particular area in our response area that we know can be violent, and if we can use body armor, that would help out a lot. Think about skin protection. Um, we're exposing ourselves to a lot of different weathers, um, and maybe it's like sand, and we're just outside a lot, and we could be outside a lot, particular shift. So you may want to use sunscreen. Um, you may want to. We expose our skins to a lot of different chemicals, so you may want to have that hand lotion available um, to help reduce that too. EMS is a high stress environment. It's important to know the cause of stress and how to deal with them. Um, what stresses you the most? What triggers your um, mental well-being, both physically and emotional. Um, you've got to develop that and understand that yourself. But sometimes it is nice to let the others know about it too. That way, if we see a situation or we see a change in you, we can let somebody know, or we can talk to you ourselves personally about it. So, um, we do have several different responses to stress. They may be an alarm response for stress. Um, then we may have reaction resistance to stress, and then we go into that recovery space. Um, so physiological signs of stress include increased respiration and heart rate, increased blood pressure, cold clammy skin, dilated pupils, tense muscles. We do perspire a little bit more due to everything going up, increased blood sugar levels. Uh, Acute reactions occur during a stressful situation. You may be characterized by feeling nervous, or excited with increased ability to focus. Delayed stress reaction manifests after a stressful event. The advanced EMT may be able to focus and function during the crisis, but left with nervous and excited energy that continues to build afterwards. You've got to learn how to manage these stressors effectively, especially during the delay response. Cumulative stress reactions are the result of prolonged or excessive stress, and these can sometimes be very detrimental to you over the long period of time. I've known people that have gone to bad calls over and over and over again, and it seems like they can't never shake it off. So it does cause a excessive stress on them. But being able to recognize that and getting appropriate help is the most important thing. Keeps the severe stressors that are sudden, severe, and unusually stressful and emotional. A lot of these events, a lot of times it could be mass casualty events. A lot of patients, a lot of hard decisions are made during these MCIs. Serious injuries to the dramatic death of a child is one personally that I have to deal with, and it does cause a high emotional state. Crash with injuries caused by emergency services provider, and death or serious injury of a coworker, especially those line of duty deaths, or either those unexpected deaths where a person was off duty. PTSD is becoming more and more looked at as part in our line of work. We have to be able to recognize that some of the symptoms are depression, startle reactions where somebody may just walk up to you, or a person staring off into space, and they shake really fast, and you're not exactly sure what's going on. So it does result from the failure to resolve traumatic stress or grief. So we've got to learn how to deal with these. So how do you recognize stress? Irritability towards coworkers, family, or friends. Inability to concentrate. You have difficulty sleeping, increased sleeping, or nightmares. You may wake up in the middle of the night, and you're dreaming about something, or you may just have your brains going all the time, so you really can't get the proper amount of sleep. Personnel may act sad all the time. They may be anxious or guilt or hopelessness. Maybe they don't feel like their job's worth it anymore, and that they're a good EMS personnel to have. Loss of appetite, and they may just isolate themselves sometimes. They don't want to talk about it. You try to talk to them with them, or try to encourage them to talk, and they don't want to. So that may be some of the signs. You may have to change your work hours or cut back on overtime. I personally know a lot of people that work overtime a lot, and I can see that it does stress them because it doesn't give them a proper amount of downtime. Talk about your feelings, seek help if needed, and that should be available to you. And it doesn't have to be anybody at work, and it could be a whole complete third party, and those resources are there. So try to adopt a relaxed philosophical outlook. Sorry about that. And minimize physical responses to stress. Signals are great. Never been in one. They're a great resource to use, and they're available to you also. It does decrease PTSD. It can be formed or at an ongoing strain, and it's just a way to diffuse about the situation and debrief. It's not a let's go in there and critique what we've done on this call. That's the AAR. That's the after action. That's what those are there for. They are there for you to find a um, common way to relieve yourself of the situation and be able to get those feelings off your chest sometimes. So burnout, exhaustion of physical or emotional strength. Some of the symptoms include chronic fatigue or irritability, lack of desire to report to work, feelings of being overwhelmed, overeating, smoking, or abusing drugs. So take care of yourself. Find something else to make yourself relax. Sometimes you may just need some time off if it's available. A lot of times we work those 12-hour shifts, 24-hour shifts, and we do have extra days off during the month. A lot of us work 3 to 5 jobs, sometimes, but find a job that's something completely different. Maybe it's not related to EMS. Um, maybe being a waitress or a waiter, or going and go to a golf course and find something to do there. So debrief after your tough calls. Find somebody that you can talk to. A lot of times, a lot of us are, if we're able to talk about it really quick and kind of get it off our chest, a lot of times we can go home without taking that stress home and putting it off on our families. So recognize that you and your colleagues are becoming overwhelmed. Understand and select strategies to deal with the stress in a constructive manner. Sometimes we just, maybe we all need to, go somewhere and get something to eat, sit down, talk about it. But be careful when you're doing that too, because the general public does listen, especially when you pipe up and start saying that you're involved in public safety. So if you do, have a colleague that expresses suicidal ideations, please try to get them help as soon as possible. Nutrition is very good to you for emergency service personnel. A lot of times, you have to eat on the run, and so we end up eating fast food, often. So try to eat nutritious as possible. Limit sugars, fat, sodium, and alcohol. Hydrate. Avoid those sugary drinks, those energy drinks, um, those drinks high in sugar like the Gatorades and the Powerades. Um, so try to find you some water to drink, mainly water. Exercise and relaxation practice these techniques often. I do, we try to exercise on a regular basis. Get out there and run, start off at a mile or just get out there and walk, just, to do something to get away from everything that's going on. It also helps you keep yourself in shape, so that when those stress events do come, you're physically able and ready to go. If you don't smoke, don't start. um, Smoking does have a lot of side effects and it does cause a lot of diseases. So if you do smoke, don't encourage your fellow employees to smoke. So try to keep that to a partial away. Sleep. Try to sleep regularly and uninterrupted if possible. A lot of times it's impossible with us, and not a lot of work. So quality of sleep is very important. Sometimes not so much the length of the time that we sleep. So know your family's health history and adjust your lifestyle if necessary. Balance work, family, and health. Try to find a balance between your work, family, and your actual family at home. So sometimes we spend a whole lot more time at work than we do at home with our families. Um, Rotate schedule and take time off when possible. Seek help if you are experiencing significant stress. Sometimes it's hard to take these calls and not take them home with us. But we don't want to expose our families to all this high stress that we go through on the job. So we work a 12-hour shift. A lot of times we're there, you know, a half an hour to 15 minutes before shift. Then we go home, and sometimes we don't get off in time, and it may be an hour or two later. So we have to find that balance. And our families, they live their normal lives. Um, so we may not always be there together sometimes. So if you have workplace issue, make sure you got some kind of diversity on the job. So each person is different. Communicate with coworkers and patients in a respectful way. Use cultural diversity as a resource. Learn how to relate and communicate effectively with coworkers and patients from different cultures, understanding each other, having those conversations. So be a role model for the advanced EMTs by showing them the value of diversity, using appropriate terminology when referring to patients. And recognize that there are legitimate differences in how various cultures respond to stress. So sexual harassment is unwelcome verbal or physical contact or an overheard conversation. Um, so there are two types of sexual harassment. Um, Quid pro quo is harasser request sexual favors in exchange for something else, such as promotion. Or you may have just a hostile work environment, as far as jokes, touching, leering, requests for a date, or talk about other people's body parts. So these complaints include complaints of a hostile work environment too. So the intent does not matter, only the other person's perceptions, and this such behavior is unacceptable. So it is important to develop non-adverse relationships with coworkers and keep lines of communication open. Please make sure you report this harassment to your immediate supervisor. Keep notes of what happened and what you said, or what they was said. It may be a third-party conversation. Or confront the harasser on if you feel comfortable doing so. So if you do have remarks or the touching does offend you, please advise them that you don't want that to happen, or you don't do that to me. So if your employer's complaint mechanism does not resolve your grievance regarding sexual harassment, file a complaint with the EEOC. Drug and alcohol use increases the risk of accidents and tension with co-workers. It can lead to poor treatment decisions. Please try to seek help as soon as possible if you do date it yourself. If you have a problem, or you may find a way to confront an addicted co-worker. Um, you may want to present, suspected drug or alcohol problems to a trusted supervisor, so who is knowledgeable in the agency's resources and policies for handling such an issue. So know your employer's policies. Um, Allowing substance abuse to go on is a big hazard to the public. Uh, we do want to try these people, try to find these fellow employees help, because a lot of times it is contributed by the job. Sorry about that. There are different stages of grief. All right. Working with family members, use special care with our patients and family members. Ask these people how they can help. Do not say you know how they feel, because they don't understand that. Make sure that you're honest with them and everything that's going on. Don't give them false hope. If you're doing CPR on a patient, then you're doing CPR. You're helping that heart pump. You're putting a tube down their throat to help them breathe, because they're not breathing on their own. So allow these the family and the patients to grieve, and always try your best to maintain a professional attitude, even in those hard situations, where there's a very eerie fear about the death itself. So always trying to remain professional, don't assume anything, and don't try to place the blame on anybody else. All right. So if you're already having to deal with the death of a child, this is a tragic and dreaded event. Try to help the family through the initial period after the death. Provide much information about the follow-up counseling and supportive services. If you know there are some out there, they can get help with that. The child is dead. Acknowledging the fact of the death is important. It should be done in a private place. Reactions may include shock, disbelief, and denial. And some parents may show little emotion. Um, if possible and appropriate, let the parents hold the child. If the family wants to see the child, you should allow them to do so. It is your decision to permit the parents to see the child. Um, so prepare the parents for what they will see. Um, Try not to overload parents with a lot of information. Um, just let the family's actions be your guide. Care for the critically ill and injured patients. Let the patients know who you are. Let them know what you're doing. That you are attending to his or her immediate needs. Avoid side and grim comments. Um, explain what's going on at the scene as soon as possible. Um, so, be careful what you say around these patients. They may be able to hear you, um, but they may not be able to respond back to you. Give patients the opportunity to express their fears and concerns. Let them talk back to you. Let them ask you those hard questions. Some of them will look at you and say, "Am I going to die today? Am I going to die from this car wreck?" And you've got to be ready for an answer. We do want to say that no, you're not going to die. Um, but however, you don't know that after you transfer care. So make sure you're very truthful with these patients. Let them know how badly injured they are. That we're going to try to do everything we can to help them out and to help them get through this situation. Respect religious customs and patients' needs. Orient the patient. Let them know where they're at. Let them know what's going on. Let them know, um, what you're doing, what your plan of action is. So, but be honest with these patients. Don't give them that hopeful feeling, and really, there's nothing a whole lot that can be done. Um, so deal with the possible initial refusal of care. Um, Allow for hope. Locate and notify family members if you're able to do so. Keep them up to date with what's going on. Injured and critically ill children. Care for you as would any adult. Ask a responsible adult to accompany a child if at all possible. So, in our certain situations, it is unclear if it is a true medical emergency. So make sure you contact medical control about the need to transport these patients. Um, Many minor signs of maybe early indicators of severe illness or injury, and if in doubt, require patient consent on transport. You have that denial phase. Do you have anger and hostility? Um, People don't understand. Um, and they may lash out. They don't understand why it's happened, um, and they get mad about it because it has happened. Then they go into a bargaining phase, and that's where they try to, um, you know, they secure a prize for good behavior or a promise to change. if they can just get that death back, then they do go into a depressive stage, and they may seclude themselves also from people. Um, and then they finally do accept it, and they accepted that this person has died, and how do we move on from there? A lot of times the hardest thing to do with people that are going through the stages of grieving is to figure out which stage they're in. 'Cause a lot of times they do start at different stages, and then it may throw you off, how to talk to these people and respond to them. So be very, very careful when you're having to deal with grieving folks. The addresses that we know what we're going to, and you may already know some of the situation. So get yourself mentally prepared to be there. Um, Ours may have a wreck, and as you're gathering information, your stress level may go up, so that you can start, managing your own stress as you're en route to that call. You get wrecks and people start showing up, first responders and things, and start giving you things size up so you can prepare yourself for what you might need. You might need extra help or different things like that. So, they may get your stress level up as you're en route to the call, but you need to be able to manage that stress, um, so that it's not exposed once you get there.